Right.
All set. I think you me.
I'm good. I'm ready. Okay, I'm ready. What's up, Dolphins fans? Welcome back to Dolphins Deep Dive. I am your host, Chris Perkins, your Miami Dolphins columnist for the Sun Sentinel. That's Dave Hyde, your columnist for the Sun Sentinel. And hey, we got playoff football this week. Dolphins at Buffalo, 1 o'clock Sunday, wild card playoff game. Dolphins in the playoffs, first time since 2016, but there's health concerns, just like there were in 2016, and they started quarterback just like they did in 2016. Your number one health concern is Tua Tagovailoa going into Sunday's game. He's still in concussion protocol. We'll talk more about that, whether you think Tua should play if he's cleared, whether it would be safe for Tua to play if the two offensive tackles that we're watching, Teron Armstead and Brandon Shell, are unable to play. We'll keep an eye on Teddy Bridgewater's broken or dislocated little finger on his right hand. He should be available to go. Raheem Mostert, the running back with the broken thumb, we'll keep an eye on him. Surgery for him, and it sounds like he's a big question mark. Tyreek Hill had the ankle injury. Jalen Waddle, the shoulder injury. Lots of injury concerns that we're going to be watching. Bradley Chubb with his hand. Now, Buffalo is the better team. They have the better quarterback, and they are the better story if you factor in Damar Hamlin. The Jets, the Dolphins got in by defeating the Jets 11-6 last week. And here's one thing that we'll touch on. The Dolphins beat the Jets using a combination of run game, defense, and special teams. Can they do that again this week against Buffalo? Mike Gesicki, the tight end, was your leading receiver last week. That was something different. So we saw a couple of different things from this Dolphins offense last week, things that we hadn't seen before. We'll talk about the Dolphins and whether they're playing with house money this week, because maybe simply making the playoffs is an accomplishment. And look, a few weeks ago, we were talking about this Dolphins team maybe winning the AFC East, maybe winning a playoff game. Now we're just happy that they made it into the playoffs. Funny how things change. Let's dive in. All right, Dave Hyde. So Tua is the number one story going into this game for the Dolphins. And the question is, should Tua play if he's cleared from concussion protocol? When Mike McDaniel spoke yesterday, Tua still hadn't been cleared out of concussion protocol, was not cleared to throw. But we're going to talk right now as though he will be cleared. So, Dave Hyde, do you put Tua out there if he's cleared from concussion protocol?
If he's cleared, if the doctors say it's good, if Tua says I'm ready to go, I do, but I hold my breath every play. I mean, yeah, I mean, why would you hold him back if everybody says everything is good? That said, in my heart of hearts, I don't think he's going to be cleared. I don't think he's going to play. I think the fear of I mean, look at it from the NFL standpoint. Not that the Dolphins are. From the NFL, so they have Damar Hamlin possibly going to make a cameo at this game, be introduced, and you can imagine that scene. The nightmare, a week ago of the NFL, and then then you have Tua, the face of concussions this year, because of how they occurred and the controversial aspect of some of them, and because of who he is. It's almost a nightmare public image for the NFL standpoint. But if he's cleared, yeah, then play him. But in my heart of hearts, I don't think he's going to play.
Yeah, it's a tough one, Dave. And I've told everybody I don't know. I don't know what I would do if I'm the Dolphins. And as you mentioned, it's just an interesting juxtaposition between Damar Hamlin and, a guy who's fighting back from injury, and Tua, a guy who's fighting to play. I don't want to say through injury, but, just with the diagnosis. And look, Tua would be playing against the team that this first started against, right? Matt Milano, the Buffalo linebacker, shoves him back in the Bills game. And we hear that it's a back injury, and Tua only stays out briefly. I would say this, Dave. If Tua is cleared, probably with me, the only reason not to play him if he's cleared would be, well, if you think there's a piece of equipment that's going to be developed or that is out there that could help him, a different helmet, and it's going to arrive 4 days later or something like. But that's not the situation. That's not the situation at all. So I don't know if you need to save Tua from himself in this case also. That
yeah, I don't know. Kurt, what are you doing? Are you playing him or are you not playing him?
I don't know, Dave. That's my answer. That's my answer. It's Tuesday. I don't know. I mean, if he's cleared, I probably play him. But if Teron Armstead and Brandon Shell are not out there, he's at a higher risk for. And again, these are just playing tackles that being tackled. I don't mean offensive tackle. These are playing tackles that Tua has been concussed on or had the head trauma in the case of Buffalo. So I'm being as honest as I can. I just really don't know if you need to protect Tua from himself.
You made your decision on whether he can be your franchise quarterback. You're saying he can't because it has to be perfect situation. And I get it's an extreme situation for a couple concussions this year, but this is the biggest game you've had in 6 years from you've made the playoffs. And you're saying, even if he's cleared, I don't want to play him. Or I'm not sure I want to play him.
Yes. Yeah. I know that's a bad way to live. It's a good thing I'm not Mike McDaniel, right? But I don't know, Dave, from the standpoint of the risk reward here. But see, the thing is, and I keep talking myself into it and out of it, the risk isn't any greater than it would be in September for next season's opener, right?
Yeah, no, sure it is. They say with time that your bruise, your concussion heals, and it gets less. Obviously, if you play the next day after a concussion, the chances of getting a concussion are much greater than if you play a year after the concussion. So, I mean, there will always be questions about him, but a lot of players come back from concussions. So,
yeah, I mean, Jalen Phillips is one of them, right there on the Dolphins.
Yeah,
so. It's a tough situation. Let's go out to Twitter here, Dave, and we'll read a couple of Twitter questions from people who have sent them in. And again, thank you guys very much for always responding when we solicit these questions. This question here comes from Finn's Lover, and the question is, or the statement is, everyone acts like Tua won't have any rust or timing issues, just return and back to early season form. That's a little bit of a concern there. Tua did play against Green Bay, so it's not like it's a long time ago that he played. But do you think there would be any rust, and is that a concern?
When he didn't play well against Pittsburgh after being out for a couple of weeks, people said, "Well, there was a layer of rust there." I don't know. He's played enough this year. If he gets in a couple practices, you would hope. After a series or two, he's good to go. Who knows? There's anecdotal evidence both ways. Guys sitting out for a couple of weeks, come back, they're fine. Guys sitting out for 2 to 3 weeks and coming back and they say there was some rust. So I don't know. I don't know how it'll go.
Yeah, and look, and here's part of the deal is that we know that Tua gives you your best chance to win when he's at quarterback as opposed to Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson. And the Dolphins have played 2 close games against Buffalo. They beat Buffalo 21-19 here in September, lose to them in December 32-29 there. So to me, that's one of the strongest arguments you can make toward playing Tua is you do have a chance to win. Now, I know Buffalo is at home and it's December and a cold weather game. It's supposed to be a high of 33 degrees, but not a crazy amount of snow or wind, no precipitation, no rain or sleet. So it's, the weather conditions, you have a chance. And look, here's the other thing, Dave, whether this is a factor or not, if I'm not mistaken, Buffalo's offense scored 21 points last week, right? They scored 35, but you have the 2 kickoff returns. So this isn't like an offense that is on fire, and this isn't an offense that has crushed you this season. It's definitely a good offense.
Yeah, they were playing against a very good Patriots defense, though, too. So it's not like, can the Dolphins match that? Dolphins defense match that on the road where they've had a lot of problems. So, look, Vegas doesn't think they have any shot. What's it at, 11 points, the last I saw? And I think that's how the sports nation feels, the Dolphins. But if they were healthy, if they had everybody whole, they would have they'd have a decent chance to win when you look at how these 2 games have gone.
Yeah, and you know what? I say a puncher's chance, right? Because anytime you have big playability, you have the ability to get back into a game quickly. But yeah, if you don't have the offensive tackles, if you don't have Tua, if Tyreek Hill has a little bit of an ankle issue, then that all takes you down a little bit. Hyde, you shrug that off.
Well, here's my issue with everybody, including me, harping on the injuries is, and I've said this was a built-in risk of this roster.
Yeah.
When Chris Greer and the Dolphins made over this roster, they took on a lot of injury risks. Teron Armstead misses 5 games on average for his 9-year career. Do you expect him to be healthy this year? He hasn't practiced all year. He's been great when he's in there. But, again, it gets back to how much do you want to invest in that guy? Tua, when they got him, it was injury risk. Now, different injury risk, but small player, slow of foot. That's an injury risk in the NFL.
So let me ask you this, Hyde. So considering, taking all that into account, they pushed their chips to the middle of the table, right? When they got Bradley Chubb, you gave up a 1st-round pick for this guy. Yeah. So what is this the right year? We'll start, with Tyreek and Teron and go through Chubb. And is this the right year to push your chips to the center of the table, or should you have waited another year? I think it's the right time because you might as well, right? You got Tyreek, you got Teron. We know that every player comes with injury risk. Even Raheem Mostert had the knee injury a couple of years ago, but at some point.
No, not every player comes with injuries. Tyreek Hill has missed 6 games over 7 seasons. That's not a guy with injury risk, despite his position, despite his speed and size. So, no, you take him. If he gets hurt, then you're like, wow, that was bad luck. Now, if Teron Armstead gets hurt, who's missed 5 games a year for 9 years, then you go, okay, that's what he does.
But what were you supposed to do at left tackle? I shouldn't have said everyone. A lot of players have injury risk.
Everybody says, well, what was their options at left tackle? Their options weren't good last season, but this gets into building. They had a 4-year. This is a 4-year plan.
Right.
Okay,
right,
we're on the 4th year.
Right.
So it isn't like, well, they didn't have any options last year. So again, when the architectural job, if they went down this road, had to be right, and you're seeing some places it's not right, and it's at major positions.
And so building off of that, Hyde, then what do you see the next, let's just say, year and a half of this team, considering the injury risks of Tua, Teron, Xavier, Bradley Chubb? What do you, do you need to go out and get another top level offensive tackle or another top level cornerback, or are you good at pass rush, or look into your crystal ball a little bit here. What are you thinking?
Let's look together. Do you think that there's a good chance they'd be in the same position next year of Teron Armstead battling valiantly through injuries as they pile up and finally says, I can't play in the 2 biggest regular season games, and maybe the play. Could that happen?
Yep.
Could Tua be hurt next year? Well, then we're answering the question of what they probably, now that gets into options and all that, and we'll see. I'm not saying get rid of Tua. I'm saying,
No, I know.
I'm
I know.
saying, you're going to have to go out and find somebody else who can compete with him and possibly supplant him.
Yeah, it's you get the new coach and you want to give him a chance. So you get Tyreek and you get Teron, and at that point, like, I don't know if you can slow the train down because the window is only open for 2 or 3 years once you get Teron, right?
Look, Mike McDaniel was asked to do two things primarily this year. Primarily, there's a lot of other. We can get into aspects of game management, all that. One, make the playoffs. He did. Right. Two, find out about Tua Tagovailoa. Right. Okay, and he's got all the information out there for everybody right now. You saw him at his height in Mike McDaniel's offense. How good he can be when everything is very good around him, when the protection's good, when everybody's healthy, when the offense is clicking, when he's in a rhythm, he can be very good. When things start to go sideways a little, there's a rush. Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa sacks him 3 times, including a. Then you say, okay, who is he? Okay, and then you get the injuries thrown in on top of that, which was always a concern.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, the Dolphins. It's amazing, like you said. This is a 4-year rebuild, and we're kind of in the same spot that we've been in a lot of other years. It's just incredible. One more Twitter question regarding Tua. This comes to us from Mr. Motrini USA. If Tua cannot play this week, why should Dolphins organization / fans believe he is not prone to concussions? And I think really that's a question of why should we think that he can endure long term? Because we know that, like, at least right now, there's some kind of concussion proclivity. I don't even know if that's a term.
It's a risk.
Yes.
It's health risk. Okay. It's not he's not prone to concussion. I mean, a lot of players have concussions, and once you have a few, then it's a risk. Okay. And so, but if he can't play this week, I mean, let's see what happens. Okay. Let's let it play out a little before we've already gone down the road a little further than I wanted to today, but let's let it play out this week.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody wants to talk about this in the short term and the long term, but for the long term, you don't have to make a decision on January 10th about the long term or about, the Sunday game that comes, maybe as late as Saturday or Sunday. So, but, obviously it's the number one question for this organization going into the game and beyond. So, they're in a tough spot with Tua, obviously. Let's move on, Hyde, and we'll go to segment 2 here. And really what I want to know here is, what did we learn about the Dolphins in the regular season? And, here's what I learned. Your coach, Mike McDaniel, needs some work as a play caller. That's not a knock on him. But it's he's a rookie head coach, and it's his first time calling plays. That's just, whatever. Again, that's not a criticism.
Sure, it is a criticism, and that's fine. I mean, he's last in the league in rushing attempts, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the things when he goes back and looks at ways I can improve, okay, we need to have a little more balance here. Everything was around Tua. Everything.
Correct.
The offseason, the in-season talk, game plans, who he is, building up his confidence, spread, and I'm sure that when Mike, he's a very smart guy, applies a little critical thinking, he'll say, okay, we need to spread this out a little conversationally, tactically, inside the franchise, everything. So it's not, the whole focus isn't on Tua.
I agree. But do you really think that's a criticism? To me, that's a statement. It's a statement.
If I think Mike would say it's a self-criticism, right?
Okay. But that's something he needs to improve. And to me, I expected some of these issues because he's a rookie head coach. He's never been a head coach. He's never been a play caller. So yes, they need to run the ball more. They should have involved Mike Gesicki more. To me, they fell in love with those throws over the middle to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and they had no answers when teams figured it out. And that starts with San Francisco, and you go straight down, they still don't have answers.
You know what? But they did have answers. Like in Buffalo, they ran for 188 yards against a few weeks ago in Buffalo. Now, Raheem Mostert ran for 136 yards of that, and he's probably not going to be available. So that's that's unfortunate. But Buffalo plays 5 defensive backs. You can run on them. So at times this year, they have had answers, and which is the almost mystifying thing. Sometimes for a half they'll run the ball, and then look, I'm a throw. You win by throwing the ball. So I'm all for it, but you got to do it within some measure of not relying 100% on it.
Right. And we go back and forth on this because, I'm a run game guy, but I'm an old man, Dave. I remember those 70s fondly. But I'll say this, really what I'm in favor of is looking at your team and determining what's going to work best for your team. And so you might be a run game guy or a pass game guy, but look at your talent and what your team does most effectively, and then most effectively against the current opponent. And this is where I credit the Dolphins last week. I know it was out of necessity, but you did win on run game and defense and special teams. And I liked that diversity. I didn't know that they could win like that. Again, this was forced on them. This wasn't by design. And I like that Mike Gesicki was your leading receiver. Now, technically, he didn't lead in receptions. He led in yards and targets. He had 6 targets and 46 receiving yards on 4 receptions. But Jalen Waddle, 5 receptions, 5 targets, 44 yards. Tyreek Hill, 5 targets, 2 receptions, 23 yards. That's not your formula for the rest of the season. We know that. But it's good to see that they can do other things and win. And again, an inferior opponent, but you showed me something. And I hope that teaches McDaniel a lesson for next year, is that, yes, I can do more than throw to Tyreek and win with this offense. That's one of the things that I hope that he learns. You can call it a criticism, I guess. I think it's a statement, an observation, but whatever. That's where I'm at with the offense.
I wouldn't take any lessons moving forward out of that Jets game. Oh, God. The Jets, you didn't have to worry about them scoring either. So basically you were asking Skylar Thompson to move the ball a little but not make the big mistake, and he didn't. Yeah. But I agree with you. We hadn't really seen Mike McDaniel say, okay, we're going to win a real ugly game, and they did.
Right. You were going up against 2 good cornerbacks in DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, and you avoided them and still won. It wasn't pretty, but whatever. Okay, defensively, what did we learn about the Dolphins this regular season? The defense was a mess without Byron Jones. Josh Boyer had no response to life without Byron Jones. Injuries were a factor, but you don't want to hear about the injuries, Dave Hyde. So
you know what? I have never heard, and this is one thing, if I was Mike McDaniel, it is a criticism. He should have shut down the Byron Jones conversation about week 3. Yeah. And said, when he's back, I'll let you know, because it was a weekly conversation. Is he going to be back? You would have thought Byron Jones was Deion Sanders in his prime. That, oh, my God, they're missing Byron Jones. Oh, my God. Now, I'm not saying he's good. I get it, and he's important to their defense.
Right.
Make adjustments, and I get they lost some other players. Their defense was hit hard. That was the unit that was hit hard by injuries, okay? Yep. And I would say Brandon Jones, in their scheme for what he can do is a huge loss. So, but you can make adjustments to it for losing Byron Jones. I would have shut that conversation down real quick if I was the head coach.
Yeah, well, and we'll go out to our Twitter question right now, and it comes to us from J7 Kilo, and it says, do you think Josh Boyer's job security is still up in the air, or do you think the playoff game performance will be a huge influence? I think that Mike McDaniel probably wants his own guy in there as the defensive coordinator. So in a way, I think McDaniel's mind is probably made up. Unless this defense leads them to a Super Bowl title, I think McDaniel's mind is made up whether or not he's going to make the change. And I would guess he probably will make a change. Now, look, everybody knows that I'm a defense supporter. I think that wipe that smile off your face, Hyde.
I appreciate you support. I like Josh Boyer, so I appreciate you supporting him.
Yeah, so but he's probably going to lose his job, and he could have done things differently this year. I think he was really up against it, but whatever, right? Whatever. I mean, Teron Armstead is up against it. Xavier Howard is up against it, and every coach on that team is up against it. The other thing we learned about this defense. Bradley Chubb remains a question, right? His health and his performance. And I did think the defense came through for you late in the season, the last 3 games, where you limited Green Bay to 2 touchdowns. Now, they did have 26 points, but you limited them to 2 touchdowns. You limited New England to 16 points because you had the pick 6. And then you held the Jets to 6 points, no touchdown. That's promising. The defense needed work, though. Let's not sugarcoat it. That's not going to save Boyer's job. But the defense did do good things late in the season. But, you've got to make defensive changes, and you've got to get personnel in here. The defense was bad on the road, good at home, but you need some major defensive changes. That's what I learned about the defense in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, there's questions of for adjustments to me with your personnel, the Byron Jones, the Nick Needham, the injuries in the secondary. They come out the Patriots game up in New England, and they play man-to-man without Xavier Howard. They're playing man-to-man, and Mac Jones goes, 81 yards down the field in the first series. And they keep playing him man-to-man. They finally switch in the second quarter at some point to zone. But that's to me, it's like, okay, you're undermanned in certain places. So, and yet they keep blitzing and putting more, and the stats of when they're blitzing are bad, okay, compared to when they're not blitzing. And so, but I think the bottom line is what you said, that when Mike McDaniel took the job, he didn't have a lot of power when he came in, and they said, you're going to take on the defensive staff. And because it was a good, they closed out the year very well, that defense, we want to keep that the same. And so now we'll see what happens. I think Mike McDaniel will have the ability to bring in his own defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, Dave, because I'm a guy who thinks that this offense needed to do better down the stretch, while a lot of people pointed to the defense. So when you talk about Boyer playing the man-to-man and blitzing and kind of being stubborn, is that any different than what Mike McDaniel did on the other side of the ball with the Tua to Tyreek?
No, I guess the difference, one, he's the head coach. The other thing for solid weeks, the reason the Dolphins, everybody was like, wow, they have a lot of talent, they could make some damage in the playoffs, was the dynamic passing game and the play calling and the look at November when everything was perfect for them. The way they played, the way they won, Tua, the passing game. But if you're asking me, was the defense put in bad spots at times? Yeah. I mean, you look at some of the time of possessions are ridiculous. The first Buffalo game, 40 minutes, it's the most lopsided, I believe. I haven't looked at last week's numbers, but it was the most lopsided number all year of time of possession, Buffalo's favor. And then they had another one of 40 minutes, another one of 39 minutes against the Chargers, I believe. That's, you want the other team to be on the field 32 minutes or more, the other defense. Your defense is on the field 39, 40 minutes. That's a tough spot to put your defense at times. So, yeah, there's questions both ways.
Yeah. And look, to me, the whole offensive thing, I actually think this offense needs some major work in the offseason too. And I'm hoping that Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel don't look at the November offense when they played inferior opponents. I hope they look at the whole package, because if I'm not mistaken, the Dolphins were 2-5 against playoff teams this year. And so, you need to look at that you boned up against inferior teams. And when you went up against the good teams, you didn't do well, and your offense didn't do well, right? The 17 points against the 49ers, the 17 points against the Chargers. So I'm hoping that they take a balanced look at the team in the offseason and not just think, well, we've got to make major defensive changes. Our offense is fine, because your offense is not fine. That's one of my major takeaways. You don't have a terrible offense, but it needs to play better against the better opponents. That's what I think.
They fell in love with the strengths of this team is
Right.
the speed at receiver. That sets up your whole offense, and I get why they fell in love with it.
Yep.
But and Tua being the center of everything, at some point they could have scaled it back, but that's what the offseason's for at this point.
Yeah, and it's a rookie head coach. Let me ask you one more thing here, Hyde. When we talk about what we learned about the Dolphins in the regular season, 2 questions for you. Are they playing with house money in this Buffalo playoff game? The season expectation was get to the playoffs. It was a rocky road. So are they playing with house money now? And does it matter how you arrive at 9 wins, right? Last season, Brian Flores' team started off slow and finished fast. This team started off fast and finished slow. So do style points matter? So are they playing with house money, and does it matter how they arrive at 9 wins?
Well, let me take the second one first. Yes, it matters how you look at Jacksonville. Had a great second half to the season, and you're saying they're building. Okay, they made the playoffs, and they're playing with house money, and they're building to the next year because you see what's forming there. Okay, Cincinnati won their last 8 games. Okay, they're saying we can make a run to the Super Bowl. So it matters how you arrive at the end of the year. The Dolphins lost 5 games, staved off the 6th game because of that Jets. They toughed that out. Okay, they toughed that out, won that game. And I'm not diminishing the importance of making the playoffs. That was the goal all year. And on some level, it's not how you get there, but a lot of the steam and the feel good about what was going on with the Dolphins, what they're building towards, was lost in that 5-game losing streak. Not only just the losing, but the injuries to key players that raise long-term questions.
Yeah. I would, the house money thing is a tough one. I would say no, because the expectation for the season was to make the playoffs, and we know of the injury situation now in the past month. But I'm going to say no there. And does it matter how you arrive at the 9 wins? I'll say that it does. I'll agree with you there, because look, when you finish on a slide, it just doesn't. The sense of accomplishment is not the same, right? And you talk about Jacksonville and the teams that made their push at the end, right? It feels like you have much more momentum, like the Dolphins last season. Even though they didn't make the playoffs, you kind of felt like there was a little more, and then it gets knocked down the whole offseason. But when you had the 7-game win streak, it did salvage something from the 1-7 start, and you kind of thought, all right, well, you're looking at something positive here. So yeah, look, December and the first week of January was a true downer for the Dolphins, but you made it to the playoffs, and that was a major goal for the season. So, all right, Hyde. Let's go to our final segment here. And look, here's how the Dolphins beat the Bills, and we'll make predictions. So I know, as crazy as that sounds, look, you can't outscore them, right? And so as stupid as this sounds, you do have to make this like a 21-20 type of game. How do you do that? Good luck. But you do have that blueprint from the Jets game, and that's not, again, that's not the model for this Dolphins team. It's not how they play, but overall, and look, against the Jets, you did have your second best time of possession by the Dolphins. I think by 4 seconds. It was a 35-minute time of possession. So you take some of those things that you did in that Jets game. You ran the ball well, and I know Raheem Mostert isn't going to be here. You played good defense, or you kept them out of the end zone. I know that's a whole different animal with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and that crew. And you used special teams. You made the field goals. You made the punts, and you flipped the field. And so, to me, that's the blueprint. Is it repeatable against Buffalo? Probably not. Probably not. But that's better than trying to outscore the Bills. It gives you a better chance to me.
Yeah, to me, there's two things that they have to do. No special teams, or three things. And I'll start with number 3 first. No special teams catastrophes. Because the Dolphins are a team that is prone to special team catastrophes this year, okay? You can't have Buffalo run a kickoff back or two like they did to New England. Yeah. Second of all, run the ball. And 188 yards last meeting between these teams tells you what you can do. Buffalo comes out with a 5-man. It'll be interesting, if they play Skylar Thompson, just for that argument. Yeah. Does Buffalo come out with 5 defensive backs? Are they going to change up what they do then? But Buffalo's tendency, no matter the opponent, is to play the nickel defense as their base defense. And that's why the Dolphins ran the ball effectively and really effectively between the guards to start last year. And the first thing is, it can't be a clean game by Josh Allen. Okay, if it's a clean game, you're going to lose because he's he like he did last game. He's going to take the game by the hand, but he is prone to mistakes. He's 14 interceptions this year. Threw another one, I believe, at the goal line against New England last week. So and you're going to need one of those. You're going to need like in the first game at Hard Rock Stadium against Buffalo, a strip sack that led to a touchdown. You're going to need something like that to set the stage for an upset.
Yeah, and speaking of that, we will go out to Twitter once again for our final question / comment, and it comes to us from Made in Day 79, and he says, "I'm glad we made the playoffs, but even if Tua comes back, Josh Allen knows all he has to do is run it himself to extend drives. We struggle hard with quarterbacks that run." Yep.
That is true. He was the leading rusher both games against the Dolphins. Not what do you have? I believe 77. The last meeting he ran for more per average, 10 for 77 yards, and so 7.7 yard average, and he had a 7.6 yard average throwing the ball. So I mean, that's the greatness of Josh Allen. There, he will do whatever it takes, especially in a playoff game, to win the game. And he can run, he can pass, he's big, he can throw the ball. I'm questioning, is he as accurate as he was? Is he as accurate this year as he's been previous years? Because the games I've seen, a lot of interceptions.
It's funny you say that. I've got a cousin who's from Buffalo, big Bills fan. He now lives in D.C., but I was texting with him last night, and he was saying that. He was saying that, I think Josh has thrown some boneheaded interceptions this season, and he's a little concerned about that in the playoffs. And look, one of the things that clearly the Dolphins need to do is get turnovers here, and not give the ball up and force some turnovers. The defense did that early in the year. They have not done that of late. And to me, that was like one of the strengths of the defense, is that this wasn't a fundamentally sound defense. It wasn't a good defense that, you're strong here, that you have like 5 Pro Bowl candidates, but they did show a knack for forcing some turnovers and making some big plays in opportune spots. And so that is definitely going to have to be a factor in winning here, is that maybe you don't force 3 turnovers, but you need very opportune turnovers that maybe it's deep in your own territory and you make it easy for your offense, or maybe it's you stop you get an interception in the end zone and stop a Josh Allen drive or something like that. But they've got to be timely and they've got to be key. That's going to be a big part of this game. Can the defense do it? I don't know. They've done it in the past, but can they do it in this spot? I don't know. So, Dave, again, going back to the quarterback situation. So, if Tua is cleared, you think he should play? I guess he should. But if it's Teddy or Skylar, do the Dolphins have a chance to win?
I think with Teddy, they have a chance. I mean, again, I'm not picking them to win,
right?
But are you saying, do they have a chance? Yeah. I mean, they have a chance. With Skylar, I don't think they have a chance. It's just too much to ask for him, and we saw him earlier in the year, and he looked like he could run the offense, but it was a very, you know, that's asking a lot for a rookie to go up and win a playoff game in that atmosphere in Buffalo. But Teddy's been in those situations before. If he's healthy, I think they have a chance. I wouldn't pick them, but they do have a chance.
Okay, let's say Tua plays, but the two offensive tackles, Teron Armstead and Brandon Shell, don't play, and Raheem Mostert does not play, which is all a very possible scenario. I think there's like very little chance of them winning. But what do you think in that situation?
I feel like I'm taking a test where you're grading personality on how I answer. You know, if Tua plays, they have a chance. I mean, again, I'm picking Buffalo to win the game, like pretty much everybody and anybody. But if Tua plays, they have a better chance, assuming, you know, he's healthy. And if Teddy plays, they have a chance. I won't pick them, though.
Yeah, I'm not either, Dave. So, and that brings us to our predictions here. You know, I'll go first here, and I'm going to take Buffalo 27, Dolphins 17. And I don't think the Dolphins are going to get crushed. I think they're going to represent themselves very well, even with the injury situation. I think even if Tua doesn't play, Mostert doesn't play, Armstead doesn't play, Shell doesn't play, I do think this team has a fighting spirit. Now, if all those guys don't play, they've got, like, I don't want to say no chance to win, but they've got like almost no chance to win if all those guys don't play. But I do like this team's competitiveness, their fighting spirit, the way that they can dig down. I don't think they get blown out in any scenario, but I'm taking Buffalo 27-17.
Yeah, I'll pick Buffalo 30-17. Just similar ideas, but I could see this getting ugly if, you know, in the second, if the game starts to tilt away from the Dolphins and everything. You know, this is a wild card game. Who knows if DeMar Hamlin shows up, it'll be off the charts emotion, and then you get that football takes a backseat to life and death. Okay, and who won't watch that scene and applaud for DeMar Hamlin and root that for his recovery? But if you're the Dolphins, you got to play in that scene, and that's that. I wrote a column today that'll be the loneliest team in America when that happens. So they gotta, you know, not only beat the Bills, but they gotta overcome what could be a huge emotional scene.
Yeah, and last thing that I will ask you about, Hyde, because you know we always have to promote the books behind you, Jimmy Johnson, Swagger, and Perfect, the 72 Dolphins. Again, I've asked you this before, the two coaches, what would they do if they were Mike McDaniel? I mean, would they make a speech? Would they have a strategy? How would they handle this situation?
Yeah, Jimmy played when I believe it was second year in going against Washington, Joe Gibbs, when Washington was a power.
Yeah,
you know, near the end of the year, and he told the team before the year, "Get ready, we're going to do everything." And his line was, "How do you beat an 800-pound gorilla? You sneak up behind him and you whack him in the back of the head with a 2x4 and you run." Okay, we're going to be. And he tried onside kicks, I believe, from the start of the game or, you know, early in the game. He did everything, and they won that game. So I think it'll be that type of a game. You know, Mike McDaniel will do the outlandish thing. Well, people say, "Oh, he's going for it on 4th and 5 from his own 37." And you're saying, well, this is the game for that. This is the game they're going to need that type of thing.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. It is Buffalo and the Dolphins. Wild card playoff game, 1 p.m. Sunday in Buffalo. We're going to see what happens. That's your boy Dave Hyde. I'm your boy Perk. You're watching Dolphins Deep Dive, sunsentinel.com.